And the question we have is, speaking of Shedeur, how should Shedeur's preseason debut performance change the quarterback competition? And Zay, the mic is yours to kick us off.
I just don't understand why two quarterbacks who had zero success in the league and also another one who's hurt over him in terms of depth chart. I think this idea of humbling him and making sure he's a nobody on this roster just doesn't make sense to me. I think Shedeur Sanders played well in the preseason game. He should have been ahead of Dylan Gabriel in a depth chart. I think Kenny Pickett. I think he. You can make the argument that okay, maybe not ahead of Kenny Pickett if you really want to nickel and dime every single thing about Shedeur Sanders. But even then, I just think he's the most talented quarterback you have in your quarterback room right now. And the fact that he's not higher in your depth chart because the owner wants to prove something or the GM wants to prove something, it just doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. You have literally reports of him practicing before practices, practicing after practices, doing everything he can to keep up the speed to make sure he's the best possible quarterback for this team. And they're treating him like an absolute, like a walk-on in college, like he's from a JUCO just walking onto a football team. I understand the media has a image of Shedeur Sanders of being egotistical, of being arrogant, of feeling like he's above the system, above the team, and what he's showing us is not that whatsoever. And I think people need to really get over themselves. So we're seeing a lot of media personalities, egos playing into a factor when evaluating Shedeur Sanders' talent and his ability to be a quarterback in the NFL.
Uh, Zach, I'm gonna cut in here, and then I'm gonna let you go. Look, I'm gonna start off with the preseason performance before I talk about what Zay had to say. And look, I'm gonna play some of these highlights as I'm speaking because look, he had a very good game. It was very impressive, his performance. I didn't believe it was going to be this good because of all the expectations, but he lived up to the expectation, the hype around this preseason game. And look, we all know that the narrative in sports is narrative driven based. That's what sports has come to. And I think what the people are trying to do is they looking at the Browns and they want to see Shedeur Sanders, and I understand why. Like I said, you look at these highlights, man. He showed that he can read an NFL defense. He put the ball in some tight windows with some high level accuracy. And you see with Dylan Gabriel, that's his name, right? The third round pick. You consider him. He obviously has to get snaps, right? You drafted him with the third round pick. Kenny Pickett, you traded a pick for him, so he has to get snaps as well. I just think people are once again reading too much into this bogus narrative about people hating on the Sanders family, and I think it's getting out of hand. You have media pundits calling the NFL racist for allowing Sanders to fall. You look at some of these tweets out here that I'm seeing. I'm gonna show some of the tweets in my next lap. But I don't think a lot of people really have a clear understanding of how this works, how the game works. How you look at the film. That he hasn't always had the best footwork in college, and I think the Browns actually did him a favor by not throwing too much on his plate so fast. People don't realize that. Everybody want to get caught up in this narrative and feed into it. It's not a narrative. It's about easing him into development, right? Because look at Dylan Gabriel. To my estimation, he played 6 total seasons of college football. Okay. And I know everybody want to criticize the pick, and sure, he may not be good. I haven't seen him play in the NFL yet. I haven't seen him play in the preseason yet. Obviously, next game, I'm pretty sure I will be able to see him and get an evaluation on him. But he played 6 years of college football. Zach, I literally just started a new job. Okay. And one person who had experience in the field that I went into, he got the first couple of gigs before me. Why? Because he had a resume with experience. We cannot act like this is not a thing. Okay. Maybe the Browns tried to find a Brock Purdy. Maybe that's what it was. Because the 49ers took him with the last overall pick and he blew up. Maybe they trying to find that guy. Okay. Maybe they traded a pick for Kenny Pickett because they want to find a Sam Darnold. They want to find a Baker Mayfield. They want to find a Justin Fields, even though Justin Fields hasn't proved nothing yet. But the Jets took a flyer. The Steelers took a flyer. Right. We forget that. Like guys that were so in the past or wasn't good and they got flyers and they resurrected their career. Maybe they wanted to do that when they trade the pick. So we cannot forget about the existence of Kenny Pickett in this. We can't forget about the existence of Dylan Gabriel in this All these guys need a job. All these guys got to play and earn the job. Again, this narrative that they are setting him up to fail is absolutely bogus. Okay, because what they're doing right now is actually how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to ease your young quarterback in. Okay, he doesn't earn credibility because of what he did in college and because of the narrative that people want to bestow on the people or on y'all. He earns it through reps, like how he did in the game. One perfect start. Keep it up. Okay, and then he should be able to move up in line in the depth chart. So as it pertains to Shedeur, and look, my last point on my first lap, I know the Browns have not been the best when it comes to being the model of how you develop a quarterback. Clearly not. Okay, the absolute manual on what not to do. Okay, but right now, as it pertains to Shedeur, I actually am in the minority. I think they're doing a very good job with him thus far. Zach, I'll pass the mic to you.
Okay, so for anyone who missed it, Lil and I actually recorded last week, I believe it was Wednesday, right after the news was dropped about Shedeur Sanders and him getting the start for the Cleveland Browns in this preseason game. Obviously, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel both suffered hamstring injuries. And I just thought for Shedeur, it was very important for him to get on the field as soon as possible. And I think under the radar, that's why I was happy the Browns took him, because Cleveland is one of the few spots in the NFL where he might have the opportunity to get on the field this year. As a matter of fact, I think he does. And my number one takeaway from this game, from his standpoint, is I just thought he looked comfortable. And I thought he proved that he's capable of running an NFL offense. He didn't make any egregious throws. He didn't have any brutal decision-making moments. Like, I just thought he played a clean game. He made a couple NFL-worthy throws. And I know a lot of people are listening and saying, oh, obviously he's an NFL quarterback. Like, that's not a big deal. This guy was a 5th-round pick. And it's not every day you have a 5th-round pick going out there in the first preseason game and starting. And especially in a situation like this. Now, anyone who watched Shedeur in college, I don't think they were surprised. This guy threw 37 touchdowns last year. He won Big 12 Conference Player of the Year, which I thought was super, super impressive. And I just thought he fell in the draft because despite how talented he is, we know that there's a lot of things that come with him. And I think in today's NFL, these coaches just really want to limit the distractions. And as talented as Shedeur is, these coaches and these executives, I think they looked at him and said, you know what? It's just not worth it. And we're going to pass and pass and pass. And Cleveland, it's just fascinating to me because they literally drafted another quarterback ahead of him. If Cleveland really loved Shedeur Sanders, they would have taken him in the 3rd round instead of Dillon Gabriel. But they took Gabriel instead. And I don't know about you guys, but I think it was the owner, Jimmy Haslam, that kind of forced Barry and Stefanski's hand and said in the 5th round, you know what? We got to draft this guy. And this is what I think is so fascinating about this situation is I do think that Kevin Stefanski prefers not to play him this season. But I don't think he's going to be able to do that because when you look at Dillon Gabriel and Kenny Pickett, we haven't seen either one in the preseason yet, but they hinted at it. Kenny Pickett has played a few years in the NFL now. We kind of know what he is at this point. He's not really that good. Dillon Gabriel, Will said it. He played in college for 6 years. There wasn't one time I watched him and said that guy could be a future quarterback in the NFL. And I thought taking him in the 3rd round was a little bit of a reach. And he's injured right now. So we don't even know when he's going to be able to get on the field. I think with Shedeur Sanders, he showed enough in that preseason game on Thursday to say, you know what, there's some intrigue here. And this guy could have a future in this league. And I feel like the Cleveland Browns don't realize what's coming because it's fine. Joe Flacco is going to start the season. We know that. But if they start 0-4, 0-5, which is very likely given what the shape of their team is right now, the chance and the calls for Shedeur are only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is not Bronny James. Like, this is a guy, despite who his dad is, that was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. We saw him throughout the college football season, and we all thought that he had 1st-round potential, and he fell in the draft for other reasons than that. But I'm really happy for him. I thought he deserved the moment. I like when his play does the talking. Like the Nike ad after the game was a little much for me, but I do think he's very talented, and I think he does have a future in this league. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to be glued into NFL Network on Saturday to watch the Browns and the Eagles and hopefully see more Shedeur.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to be watching it too. I think the Browns have a very fascinating quarterback battle. They have four guys right now, and I think again, the media is going to try to bully GM Andrew Berry and Stefanski into starting him, which may not be the best thing for his career. There's nothing wrong with sitting for a year, and I think people don't realize that. Mahomes sat for a year, and he's way more talented than Shedeur Sanders. Let me guess, I'm a hater for saying that, right? That Mahomes is better than Shedeur. I mean, come on, all right. Kenny Pickett, to me, should be the quarterback number 2 to start, just in case Joe Flacco get injured, because I do believe that is nothing wrong with sitting a quarterback for a year. There's nothing wrong with soaking the knowledge, getting experience, and then cutting him loose the following year. If anybody is set up to fail, it's Kevin Stefanski who set up the fail, because he's been, since he's taken the job. Okay, he's been with the era of Baker Mayfield being over, into the transition to Deshaun Watson with all the allegations, into this mess here. When you got 4 quarterbacks in your roster, you're taking 2 in the NFL draft. He's the one that set up the fail, because he's the one that got to split the reps. Joe Flacco, he led the Browns to the playoffs, but he's old. That run to me is a little bit overrated. He got hot. He used his experience. He played with momentum. He got hot. So now there's ownership that's making the decision as well. He got to abide by that, but he also got to split reps for Dylan Gabriel that was taken in the 3rd round, and then he got to also get Shedeur Sanders here. He gets all the media backlash for literally just existing on the job. I mean, he's the one that set up the fail, because Kenny Pickett, again, it could be another look. I don't really think Kenny Pickett is good, but the guy had moments his first year on the Steelers. Maybe he might show a flash or 2 in training camp, right? He had a good pass to Jerry Jeudy that I saw in the corner of the end zone. Very accurate, right? So, again, he's the one that's helped the field. This narrative that, the organization is setting up Shedeur Sanders, to me, does not make any sense at all. But, say, I'll let you get the mic.
Well, before I do, I just wanted to say this. I'm not saying the organization is setting him up to fail, but I do think there is an obvious conflict of interest here. Like, I don't think Kevin Stefanski wanted Shedeur Sanders on the team. I think if he had his choice and he was running this team, he would not have drafted him. But the owner forced his hand. And I think that's where the controversy comes in. If the fans and the ownership are just calling for this guy to play and you get off to a slow start, but the head coach doesn't want to play him because he doesn't fully trust him yet, or doesn't want him on the team to begin with, I think that's where the conversation is coming from a bit. And that is not ideal for Shedeur. It's not.
And Zach and Lil, I can't even talk about his on preseason debut performance, because this is stuff he did in college. The accuracy, the throws, making the timely throws, tight windows. We did all this. We knew he had this. We seen the prospect profile. We seen him do this. We seen the real. We seen him, his abilities to do this already. So when we're talking about him being a 4th on the depth chart, and that's my real problem. I'm not expecting him to start this season. He doesn't have to start. He could be the 2nd on the depth chart the entire season, or 3rd. It is, for me, the depth chart isn't the issue. The issue is they painted a narrative about this kid, which directly impacted his draft stock. There's no way any other this caliber of this quarterback, this caliber of quarterback is not a 5th round pick, and we know that. We've seen quarterbacks drafted in the 1st round who are way less than what Shedeur Sanders is. So the fact that we are seeing and witnessing the media, the team talking about, oh, that's not the player I drafted, that's Barry's pick. That's where the issues are lying. And I'm not saying they're setting him up for failure or anything else, but they don't want him at all. So they're not even expecting him to succeed in the Cleveland Brown uniform. They're not expecting him to even play on his football field, because if Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel were healthy, do we see Shedeur Sanders play game 1 of the preseason? I don't think so. I don't think he plays at all. I don't think he dresses up to play. Then that's the issue. The fact that anybody wants him to sit down for a year, that's not bad advice for a team that's planning for him to be the future quarterback. That's not bad advice at all. But for a team that doesn't even want him to begin with is the issue. And multiple NFL teams passed on him because of that outside noise, what's happening outside of the football field, not the caliber player that he is. And he's not even a kid that's getting in legal trouble. He's just outspoken, and the family's outspoken. It is not about, and that's what the main issue for me is with Shedeur, in terms of what's happening with Shedeur Sanders, because this is a kid who has the talent in the world to be an NFL quarterback, but he's being painted as someone who's A, not ready, or B, the organization just doesn't want him. So I that's my issues right now with the whole situation with Shedeur.
I mean, when did we ever care about who wanted who when they were drafted? Who drafted Patrick Mahomes? Who wanted Patrick Mahomes? Right? How did we know that? Right? We didn't know that. We didn't know that Andy Reid wanted Mahomes or the owner wanted Mahomes. We didn't know that. We don't know these things when it comes to other players. Why all of a sudden it's a big thing when it's Shedeur Sanders? Okay, who wanted Jackson Dart? Right? We could guess Brian Dable possibly, but we don't know that. Did Joe Sheen want that Jackson Dart? Did he want Shedeur? Who wanted who? We don't know these things. So why, when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, oh well, Andrew Berry wanted him, or the Jimmy Haslam wanted him. No, Kevin Stefanski didn't want him. We don't know these things. We never know these things.
The media tells us, and that's the whole issue, because the media tells us
narrative.
We don't ask for this information. Like none of us as consumers, we don't care about what's happening outside of Sundays, right? We want to see what happens on the football field. If it's not an injury, we want to see what's happening on the football field. But when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, it's everything else outside of the football field. It has nothing to do with his talent. The whole narrative about Shedeur Sanders has everything to do outside of his talent as a football player. If you're telling me Shedeur Sanders is a 5th-round pick as a quarterback, then fine. Then tell me he's not talented enough to be a top 4 pick. I mean, a top 4-round pick, right? Whatever it is, right? But that's not the case. We're sitting here talking about someone that has nothing that isn't in any legal trouble. He isn't in trouble with the police or enforcement. He doesn't have any priors. But we're talking about this kid like he's a rebel. Like he's causing havoc to society when all he is playing football, and he's gonna gloat about it on the days he's not playing football. I just don't understand why we're devaluing Shedeur Sanders as the football player for the stuff that he does outside of the football field, which isn't even crazy. We've seen worse from other people, so I just don't understand why he gets knocked for that. That's mainly it. Because again, you were right, Lil. We don't care about where these guys are getting drafted, who wanted him, who did. We don't care about that, but when the organization is using it against him to not play him, that's directly impacting his career and directly impacting the fans of football.
When you are a 5th-round quarterback, you don't play. To be fair, you on the sideline. That's the thing. There's little nuances that I think people, if they judgment is not solely focused on narratives, they will actually remember, like, oh yeah, well maybe 5th rounder does not really play at all during camp. He's literally on the sidelines most of the time. Probably don't even make the team. This guy got the start, whether the injuries or not. They signed Tyler Huntley. They could have threw Huntley out there with his experience. This guy Huntley played in the wild card, almost beat Cincinnati. So again, we can spin this narrative in what direction we want. The reality is this guy played and played well, played great. In his first preseason start, probably had the best out of all rookies, and we got that. So now I think there's a assumption that we'll see him even more in the next game. But we also do have to realize that there's 3 other quarterbacks on this roster. I'm pretty sure you don't need Joe Flacco to play, because we already know what we have with Joe Flacco. He's old. He don't need to play any preseason. So I don't even need to see Joe Flacco, right? But we want to see Kenny Pickett. We want to see Dylan Gabriel. And we want to see Shedeur. Everybody overreacting. Oh, he's 4th on the depth chart still after that performance. Again, we are jumping ahead of the curve here. Patience is key to quarterback development, and a lot of people are not having that right now, and I just don't understand it. We got comments like RG3. We already know he's a narrative-driven host. Everything with him is a narrative. It's never about football. It's always a narrative with him, okay? So I don't even want to talk about RG3. You got this guy, this random guy. I saw this on Twitter. I screenshotted it. This random guy named Flint, okay? He must have been in Flint, Michigan with some bad water, because this guy is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Shedeur was supposed to go out there and struggle. Coaches is disappointed that didn't happen. How the hell are coaches disappointed that their plays ain't struggle? Again, can we get back to logic, please? It's really blowing my mind right now.
Last question real quick for you guys. And this is like a nuanced question. It doesn't really matter, but Shedeur Sanders didn't get first team reps at all going into that game. If he would have had a bad performance, what will be the conversation today?
Well, if he had a bad performance, I think that a lot of people, again, with Shedeur Sanders is always a narrative, whether good, whether bad. It would have been, well, the Browns were right for letting Shedeur Sanders fall, which I also wouldn't have agreed with, because I'm neutral. I just want to see the kid play football. But when I'm seeing people like Mr. Flint, okay, act like he got half a brain, if any, make comments like this, it goes against the logic of football. Can we stop? Can we not get so highly invested in emotion here and narratives when it comes to this? Can we keep it football? The guy had a great preseason game. Let's rock with that. Okay, sure, he's going to get more reps, and I think he's going to make the team. Now, if he doesn't make the team, then we can come here with the narratives. Oh, the Browns never wanted him to begin with. But if he makes the team and earns it, then we don't have to worry about this.
Well, let me ask you this. Did Shedeur's performance on Friday at all change your opinion on him when it comes to his outlook this season?
Nah, not at all. I always thought he was I ranked him. I was the only one here between me and you, Zach, that ranked him on my quarterback rankings. So basically, if his performance in line with my prediction, I think he'll see the field this year. I do. That's why I ranked him in my top 32. I believe I ranked him like 27 or something like that because I wasn't so sure he's going to play or not. But I do believe that I am going to predict he's going to start because I do believe that Joe Flacco, what he did was a myth. I do believe the people are going to put pressure on the Browns to get a good look at Shedeur Sanders, and I do believe they will cave to that pressure, right? But my point is, let everything rock. Let everything get to that point. We don't got to jump the gun here. What's going to happen is going to happen. Okay, if he is really that dude, we will know. We're going to find out. We're going to see. They're not going to cut up their nose to spite their face because jobs are on the line. Sure, Stefanski won 2 head coaches of the year, but his job is not safe. Nobody's job is safe in the NFL. His job could be on the line. Andrew Berry's job could be on the line. We forget what happened, the heist that was pulled by Deshaun Watson, the fact that they owe him $45 million this year, next year. We forgot about that. Guy's job should be on the line right now. So if he's good and he continues to show what he showed in that first preseason game, he's going to start at some point. And that's why I ranked him.
Well, before we move on, could you just pull up Dujanay's last comment about Dwayne Haskins? Because I wanted to address that. I think that was interesting.
Yes, sir.
So Dujanay brings up, are you saying is this a Dwayne Haskins type of deal? And that is exactly what I'm saying. I think that is a phenomenal comparison because if you guys remember Dwayne Haskins, RIP, when Washington drafted him, the reports came out that their GM and head coach Jay Gruden at the time, they didn't want him. It was a Dan Snyder pick. He forced their hand. And Dwayne Haskins did not start right away as a rookie, and it was kind of clear that he wasn't ready. But ultimately, Dan Snyder said, we took this guy in the first round. We have to play him, and we'll see how it works out. And we obviously know it didn't work out for Dwayne Haskins in Washington. But this is what I'm saying. The head coach and the owner here are not on the same page. And I think that could be a recipe for disaster. Now, if you're Cleveland, I think it is in your best interest to get him on the field at some point this season just to see what you have. Because I think where this preseason game for Shedeur was important was I wouldn't be shocked if there is a team next offseason, if Cleveland is terrible and they want to draft a quarterback, I wouldn't be shocked if there's another team that looks at him and say, okay, maybe we're willing to bet on his talent now. I thought that's how well he played in this preseason game. And the thing about the Cleveland Browns is next year, the quarterback class is really good projected. Arch Manning, we know that Jimmy Haslam, he's already addressed him and said that he would be interested in taking him possibly with the number 1 pick. So if you're Cleveland, I think you want to get him on the field this year and see what you have and ask yourself, okay, is this a guy we could actually see a future with? And if they don't think that's the case, I think Shedeur played well enough where maybe there would be another team that's interested.
And look, I do, and this is my last point here about the Dwayne Haskins point. Again, yeah, so we have this situation happen all the time where one guy, a GM wants somebody, and maybe the head coach is not on board. At the end of the day, this happens all the time. Joe Sheen, his son wanted freaking Jaden Daniels, begged him to draft Jaden Daniels. Guys see things differently. We just can't blow this up into a microscope because of this narrative. Again, I do agree with Zach. There's going to come a time, if we believe that the Browns are going to be bad, there's going to be a point in time where they have nothing to play for other than to see what Shedeur Sanders is made out of. And trust and believe, if they are not in contention for anything, we are going to get to look at Shedeur Sanders playing against legitimate football competition.
You know, I think my last point on Shedeur Sanders in general is, I think he's going to continue to have a solid preseason. It doesn't have to be spectacular. It doesn't have to be amazing and generational. Solid spring training camp performances. Because as we see any quarterback in these preseasons, once one good performance happens, the confidence builds. Now the next one happens, the next one. So you're going to see the fans little by little start the clamor, especially in the Cleveland Browns, where, like you said, Lil, and technicality in terms, I don't know if you did predictions, standings, yada yada, but this team is not really projected to win a Super Bowl this season. So there's going to be fans looking and seeking rather Shedeur Sanders, a Gabriel, or Kenny Pickett to be the starting quarterback of this team if Joe Flacco and this Browns offense doesn't generate points, doesn't generate wins. They're going to be clamoring because so far Deshaun Watson has not provided that. Joe Flacco has given you a spark, but like you said, he's older. They're going to be looking at somebody out that quarterback room to emerge. And there might be a lot of people fanning for Shedeur Sanders. I'm very interested in seeing if the coach decides to go to him or is he going to go to Gabriel Pickett first.
I mean, look, and this is my official last point for real. This is why, and you look, I do think this guy should have been on the roster, right? I'll always say that clearly, football related. This is why teams that want Colin Kaepernick on the roster for this exact reason. Because if a team signed him, yeah, sure, the narrative was he needs to be on the roster. But if he was on the roster, the narrative would have been he needs to play. And teams don't want to be bullied into making decisions that can cost them their job or anything. Okay, that's exactly what would have happened. So again, when it came to Shedeur Sanders, clearly he had a big following. That guys was staying up, grown men with church in the morning, staying up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning watching the Pac-12 after dark because of Deion Sanders. Guys that never really watched college football before was watching college football faithfully week to week. So it was almost like a cult. Okay, we talking about a cult here. All right. And the cult of people is pushing this narrative to get him out there and play. And look, he's good. He's going to play. He's going to start. He's a starting quarterback in the NFL. He showed that. He showed that against the NFL defense, he belongs. But let's be patient with it. Because again, the mob is going to come and bully and try to mess up the plans. And that could actually do him this justice. Allow him to be like Patrick Mahomes in the sense that we're going to sit for a year and develop. And it may not sit for a whole year. We're going to sit for half a season. And then when the Browns do what they do, which is mess it up, he's going to go out there with some momentum, not a lot of film on him. He's going to play with rhythm, and he's going to be the quarterback of the future of the team.
Wow. I just, it was so funny. Like, when was the last time you've seen visiting fans, because this game was in Carolina, have the jersey of a 5th-round pick? It was crazy. Every time he was completing a pass, the cameras were panning over to fans wearing the Shedeur jerseys. They're doing the watch celebration. It was awesome. And I just think the whole Jimmy Haslam aspect of this is really what I'm watching, because Will brought it up earlier, and I agree. Like, Kevin Stefanski could be coaching for his job. There is no guarantee that he's going to be back next year. So I think that he has to be very careful here. If he's stubborn and the Browns are 0-5, 0-6, and not only does he, if he doesn't play Shedeur, but like, if Kenny Pickett gets a snap for the Browns this year, I'm going to be pretty disappointed. I'm willing to give Dillon Gabriel a chance because they drafted him in the 3rd round, and we haven't seen him play yet in the preseason, but I don't think he's better than Shedeur Sanders, and I'm hoping the Browns see that when they play him in the preseason. Hopefully he gets on the field this week, but I just don't know if Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry realize what's about to happen here, because if they start the season off bad and they struggle, those calls are only going to get louder and louder for a guy that they didn't even want to draft.
And I'm glad my guy Dujane, salute to him, dropped this comment, because Manziel started week 1. He started day 1. He didn't get to develop. Baker Mayfield started in week 3 because Tyrod Taylor was the guy for like 2 to 3 games. He sucked. They threw Baker Mayfield out early. That's another reason why they failed. Shedeur Sanders had 3 quarterbacks, well, 2, because we don't believe in Dillon Gabriel, right? So 2. I haven't seen Dillon Gabriel, right? But you have 2 guys this guy can sit behind and learn and actually get shot in there at some point, playing with momentum and be developed the right way, the proper way. So let that sink in for all the people that want to run with this narrative.